Hello and welcome back. Today we're making a few ornaments just in time for Christmas apparently. The first one being the Tim Hortons Timbit Snowman. So to start this off I wanted to obviously be as light as possible, so I used some styrofoam balls. I picked the size that I wanted it to be. You can obviously go smaller, bigger, whatever. And using a wire that I cut to not exact but decent length, and I'm putting it through all three of them just to make sure I have the length that I want it to be. Taking wire cutters and kind of putting one end to the side just to keep it contained. And the main event is going to be clay. It does not matter the color that is used because it will be painted in just a moment, but I'm going to be flattening that out to my desired thickness. They're wild and thick enough that I can add texture to it, but not too thick to the point where they look a lot bigger than the styrofoam balls. Smoothing that down to each of the balls themselves, which sounds weird. For texture, I am just going in with some tin foil that I'm throwing into a ball essentially. A certain texture that Timbits tend to have, although I do go back in with it again once these are a little bit drier. Then the second one, which I'm actually going to be leaving smooth though, I found that adding literally just like Elmer's glue to it definitely helped it stick to the styrofoam ball. And then once again placing all three of those back on. I'm going to smooth it out all to the top. Instead of adding water, I'm adding glue just to help it stick to itself. And then adding a loop on top so I can actually loop it onto my tree. For the arm itself, if I am directly referencing the photo, the arms on the original ornament don't actually move, but I wanted mine to move. I wanted mine to be able to party a little bit, you know? Yeah, woo! Have some Christmas spirit. Christmas! So I just used some wire and I put it through the opposing way that I originally put the wire through. So instead of up and down, it's horizontal. And then I bent them to the shape that I needed them. For the scarf itself, I just made a snake of clay, and with the same roller I just rolled that out to a flat snake of clay kind. And again going back in with the texturing. I did obviously make sure that this had time to dry, so instead it was onto the details. For one, I am using a little piece of the wire, and then I'm going to be wrapping a little bit of clay around it and basically just tapering off on one end. This is going to make the carrot nose. Then adding some texture to the scarf that is now wrapped around his or her neck. Snowman, I guess, is a he, but we're not going gender specific here. I also did add a little bit of texture to the carrot just to give it a little bit more detailing. And then it was time for the paint job. Adding a basic white acrylic paint to the base of the top Timbit and the scarf. I was going to add it to the bottom, but seeing as how we'll be doing such a darker color, which is going to be a black-brown mix to make a chocolate Timbit, I didn't need to add the base color. Oh, that is mostly black, okay. There we go. It's chocolatey, I guess. Then for the detailing of the actual scarf, I'm just going back and forth between kind of a reddy orange and just a specific red. I actually mixed some red in with the orange because it was a little bit too orange for my liking. I'm just alternating the colors. As for the arms, I am utilizing that first paint that I actually got wrong for the bottom timbit. It was a little bit too dark, but I figured it would be perfect for the arms, seeing as how they are supposed to be just sticks. I did rough up the arms a little bit so the paint would stick a little bit better to them. I sanded them down a little bit. As for the facial features, let's call them, I'm going to be sticking on the nose, the carrot nose that I previously made, as well as adding some E6000 glue for the eyes and the mouth. Just spreading that out a little bit since I will be adding a resin at the end, so it doesn't really matter. Because I didn't want to pre-do these and then have an issue sticking them on later on, I added some black acrylic paint into my clay and mixed that up. And then just had some of these organic shapes by taking smaller and bigger pieces depending on which one I was working on, and simply gripping at those with my dotting tool. Again, taking back to the second timbit, which is the yellow one, I am going to be adding a little bit of definition to that, simply by using a sponge, a disposable sponge, that I've taken some of the pieces off of, and going in with the same orange-like dimension to it of sorts. As for the second one, this is the mistletoe. Duh. So I grabbed a few of these from Valley Village in the past while. One of them had a Snoopy that was on top of a rocket, which I decided to turn into a missile of sorts. So I just took Snoopy off, cut the unnecessary pieces off, and then grabbed another little bag that had I know this is a frog, but I'm going with a toad just because it worked better. And you try finding a toad instead of a frog at a thrift store. I had to decide which way I wanted the toad and the missile to be connected. I decided to put it on the back simply with some hot glue, though I did end up using E6000 to secure it a little bit better, but hot glue to start. And then to make it actually look like it's wrapped around, maybe with some rope or something, so it's not, just glued to a frog or a toad, I used some strips of silver sequins, because we already got to be festive a little bit, wrapping that around once again with hot glue, and a ring at the top, just so that I'm, again, able to put it onto the tree.
Well, I'll be dipped in shit. That's a little red truck hauling a Christmas tree.
Now this silver, let's call it rope, perhaps, you may recognize from my most previous Barbie video. This was actually around the cowboy hat, but I took it off and I realized I could use it for something else, which was just this. Then again, one of those bags from the thrift store, I ended up having to pick between 3 of these trucks. Figured Tom Mater was the best option. I did a spray of a red primer. I actually went in with 2 sprays just to get every nook and cranny that I could. Although I did end up going in with some acrylic paint, doing a basic paint job. Once that was dried down, I used a white paint for all of the windows. That includes the front window, which actually ended up covering his eyes, thank God, because that was a little bit creepy. A silver on the back portion, though you won't really see the back portion, and I wanted it to be a silvery red, so I just ended up putting the red on there anyways, and then adding the silver afterwards. I also added the same silver paint to the rim of the tires as well as using a black acrylic paint on the actual tires themselves. And then to seal it all in, I just used a clear coat because acrylic is very, very prone to getting scratched off, and trees are very prone to scratching. Once that was all said and done, I finally added the tree portion, which obviously I can't put a real tree on here, because that would just end up not rotting down, but it would end up getting all satin brown the way any tree would. So this is actually off of a fake tree. I just took a branch off and then cut it down, made it so it would fit onto this specifically, twisted those two together so it would look like a more full tree, because you know, the little red truck ain't gonna be hauling a Christmas tree that's sad. I did use a little bit of a dollop of hot glue just to keep them together on the top and bottom, but then using a little bit more of a dollop of hot glue on the actual truck on the, let's call it a tailgate, and the upper portion just to secure them as best as possible. While I was tying the silver rope around and around and around and further securing that once again with hot glue. Later on E6000, but for now, for the immediate hold, hot glue. I did question for a few minutes how I was actually going to attach this to my tree, and then I figured that I could just use these same cord. Let's call it a cord rather than a rope in the last 10 seconds of this tutorial. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Oh. Vroom, 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 vroom. I want you in my room. Just a minute together from now until forever. Oh, that was lovely. I added the cord underneath the tree between the back a little bit and basically tied it around itself so it would still blend in, but it would be able to be put onto the tree. That's it for today's video, and I hope you guys enjoy. Merry Christmas, guys.